Welcome back to the Retail Perch. I'm Courtney Adams, VP of Marketing for Birdzi, and today we're going to do this a little differently. This is a conversation that happens every day in retail. You've got POS data, loyalty data, and dashboards telling you what's happening in the business. And you can get to what's happening in the stores, but there's still a gap because that takes time. Time to pull the data, time to connect it, and time to turn it into something you can actually act on. That's where things start to break down. Issues don't surface right away, execution varies from store to store, and teams are left piecing together things after the fact. By the time you have a full picture, you're already behind on doing something about it. And the reality is, most retailers are still operating that way today. Not because they don't have the data, but because they don't have it fast enough or connected in the right way. So what we want to do today is just play this out in real-time retail. What does it look like when you can go from question to answer to action without a delay? We've got a great group here to walk through that with you. Members from the Birdzi CS team, people who have actually worked through these kinds of challenges. And we'll be using AskKea to show how quickly you can get from question to answer to action. I'll let you all just quickly introduce yourselves and the perspective that you're bringing to the table.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Doherty. I will be acting as marketing, which is great because I have a master's degree in digital marketing. I've been with Birdzi for 6 years. I started in marketing, but I have been with customer success for most of that time.
That's great.
I'm Katie Christ. I'm going to be playing the role of merchandising today. I've been with Birdzi almost about 2 years here, but have about 12 years of experience in the personalization space with grocery retailers.
Hi everyone, I'm Amanda Martinez. I'll be playing an analyst today. I've been with Birdzi for just over a year. Before Birdzi, I have about 7 years of experience as an analyst and account manager across various retailers and industries. So excited to talk to you today.
Hi, I'm Linda Wakeham. I've been with Birdzi for 3 years. I'm part of the client success team. And prior to coming to Birdzi, I spent 9 years in grocery retail. I had two responsibilities. I started in customer strategy and then went into a merchandising role. So I have spent time in your shoes. And at Birdzi, we spend time with every one of our clients talking about strategy and action plans. So today I'm going to show you AskKea. We each are playing a different role. I'm in the role of the CEO, and what AskKea does is it sits on top of all of the retailers' data. So we gather your data, we normalize it, and then this natural language tool sits on top of all of your data. You can ask questions, any kinds of questions, as long as the data is there. What we'll see today is with a CEO, CEOs want answers. They don't want to weed through data. They don't have time. And they can't wait weeks for their team to come up with what is going to be the action plan. So I'm going to explore two questions today from the perspective of the CEO. This is AskKea. This lives and resides in the Birdzi portal. So across the top are many solutions that Birdzi offers. We're going to focus today on AskKea. And as you can see, I've written in my very first question, letting AskKea know I am in the CEO role. And what I'm looking for is using Q1 2026 as my time frame. What differentiates my top performing stores from the bottom performers? The first thing Kia does is lets me know what data it will go and fetch. And then quickly, it comes back with answers. So you'll see here that Kia divided the stores into quadrants, the top quartile and the bottom quartile. Look at these differences. Sales for the top quartile, 8.5 million per store, and the bottom quartile, only 2.86. That's a 3 times difference, doing 3 times as much sales. We also see shopper behavior, 2.6 times more trips. Baskets, 15% larger in the top performing stores. And it's important to note, items are flat. So what this is really telling us is the top performing stores are winning the trip. They also, in that basket, have a different mix. So the two things we should focus on are spelled out really clearly. The biggest differentiator is trip volume, and there's that higher basket value, but it's driven by the product mix and the price of items. The next thing we see is as Kia goes deeper into the data to expand on its answer, it calls attention to the top performing stores have more fresh penetration in the basket. It happens to call out deli is a specifically important department in those higher performing stores, but it also tells us that the bottom stores, the focus is center store. Think of center store as the items that are most oftenly promoted. So they may be coming in, purchasing those items that are on sale. This is all very consistent with how a shopper ends up with a higher average basket. The next thing Kia provides without prompting is also what's the difference about who the shoppers are. So the top performing stores have a higher concentration of core shoppers, and in those bottom performing stores, more than half of their sales are not identified. So this means shoppers are in the store going through your point of sale and never using a loyalty card or entering a phone number. They don't identify themselves. And a key to really growing your customer loyalty is knowing the shopper. So lots of insights here, talking about winning a trip, getting the basket mix to improve with more fresh, and better customer identification. So then we talk about, let's get into action. What are the changes we need to make in those bottom performing stores? So what we see here is make what they're describing as a trip driving engine. It gives some really good suggestions. One is make sure those high frequency items are promoted, make sure they're easy to find, and give shoppers a reason to make that additional trip. These items, very common in grocery as the top items, your bananas and berries, chicken, eggs, and milk. Let's make sure those are easy to find, great prices, and in fresh, it's really about reliability, quality, and assortment. So another way they talk about reason to visit is giving shoppers a marketing reason. So do a fresh deal of the day. Do a meal solutions bundle. Maybe that's middle of the week. We've got dinner figured out. On Wednesdays, we create the dinner bundle. Also, heading into the weekend, let's do weekend dinner grill kit, a meal kit, etc. Make sure end caps are well designed and filled. Make sure that anything that's in your ad is well stocked, and make sure prices are clear and easy to find. It breaks down then what can be done in the next 2 to 8 weeks. Great insights here. So a lot more information in taking action. I'd like to just show you very quickly the second question. What's impacting shopper retention? So what we're seeing here, some is across your stores, we're looking at all of that data. And what Kia came back with is those shoppers that are the best in our retention, that have been shopping a long time, your loyal shoppers, high retention rates, they're finding reliable, fresh quality, and they're finding in stocks. So they're seeing the assortment in the basket. Shoppers are buying a broad assortment across your store. We also are giving shoppers a reason to come back. And who we are at Birdseye is personalization and loyalty identification. And it's one of the important actions you need to take. To retain your shoppers, you need to know them. So making sure that you're capturing the shopper ID, making sure that the shoppers can get in and out of the store quickly, no wait times at checkout, and that they can find what they need. And again, we go back to reliable, fresh, and great end caps, great, easy to find promotions. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to hand it off to Stephanie.
Well, wait 1 second before we move on. Linda, what
No,
an incredible. I mean, I am so excited to see what the rest of you bring to the table. If that's just from two questions, we have the understanding of what's happening down to a shopper level and suggested action to help our retailers. Thank
that's
you.
great.
So from a
That's
high
great.
level, we got
Thanks,
it.
Courtney.
Yeah, for sure. Amazing.
Yeah.
Uh, I use AskKea for fun, and it is just incredible. It keeps coming up with different things. Stephanie, I would love to move on to you and see, what are we seeing from a customer perspective? Are we at risk of losing any of our high value shoppers?
So that is an excellent question, and let me share my screen. As I mentioned earlier, I am taking the role as the marketer, the maybe the VP of marketing who has been asked to come up with some creative ways to keep our shoppers from moving over to a competitor who has opened or is opening next door in the near future. This is a real scenario faced by a couple of our retailers. And as you can see, I asked the question. I made sure that I included as much information as I could in the initial question to save time. And I'm asking for over the last 90 days of the shopper's transactions. So Kia initially pulls a list of what it considers the high value customers, the top 10% in spend or trips. As you can see, looking over some of the results, some are a little outside the range of normalcy. And the interesting thing here is that Ask Kia actually picks up on that and asks me if I would like to apply a data hygiene filter to the results. And I asked it to, yes, please do that. And then it came back with uh, another set of results. And it gives me not only the shoppers that are identified, but also the average trips, spend, and then the categories that are most shopped by these shoppers. It asked if the 3 days, 3 trips a day was a good filter to use, and I said that was fine. And it gave me my download of the shoppers. The next thing, though, I wanted help with was a marketing email that I wanted to create with to send out to these shoppers. And I asked Kia for some recommendations, and it built me 3 offers. But I noticed that there was an offer for gasoline, which is not an offer that we would include. So I actually asked it to remove the fuel offer. And then Ask Kia came up with 3 more offers. And because I am human and not an AI machine, I noticed that after I did the fuel offers, I actually wanted to exclude some other shoppers. And we excluded the gasoline shoppers, and then I also wanted to exclude pharmacy shoppers from this offer. So AskKea was doing a lot of work for me, and then I realized there were things that I hadn't realized. So then we excluded pharmacy from the high value shoppers to get a new list. And then I asked, would these exclusions change what you had suggested for offers in the first place? And AskKea said that it would not. And then based on these shoppers, I also wanted the recommended UPCs. So it gave me some great offers. And in the initial list that it gave me, soda was a big item. And then the staples, including milk and bread, and meat and chicken. So they're great offers. They're the products that the shoppers do shop and would appeal to many of the shoppers if I sent out this email with 3 offers in it. But then I wanted to know what use PCs to include in the offers. And AskKea went through and found me which UPCs would make sense to include based on what these shoppers buy. And as you can see, we have a list of UPCs, but it was questioning whether or not we should do strict eligibility, meaning just a hard-coded list of UPCs, or category based. I thought that I wanted a strict list, but then when we came to the meat and chicken, Kia helped me remember that this would be tricky to do. And so we decided we would make the meat offer just a category offer and then keep the others in the strict UPCs. So that is what Kia generated for me, a list of UPCs to be used with each of the offers that I would send out in my email. And so from start to finish, I sat down about 5 minutes ago to create an audience, create a marketing email with relevant UPCs for a group of customers that we consider high value, but we are also concerned about losing to a competitor that has moved in. All of that with AskKea, without any help from analysts, without waiting for uh, analytics to get brought back to me. I did this as the marketer sitting down with AskKea.
That is incredible. I have a question just for the group. How long would that normally take?
Well, from what I have heard and from what I know of some of our retailers, if they were to ask for these numbers, now remember, I took you through my stream of consciousness because that's how I use AskKea. So I asked for something and AskKea gave me something. That in itself could take a full day. Then I get it and I realize this isn't exactly what I wanted. And then I would have had to ask again. In this case, I can see, oh, there's an issue in what you're asking for in your numbers, and I can amend that, and then I can get the exact thing that I'm looking for within seconds.
Incredible. It really is.
The beauty in what I'm watching Stephanie do is that she started with the high value customers that
Mhm.
were at risk. AskKea tailored offers to help keep these shoppers in our stores. So often, marketing says, here are three great offers. Figure out who our best customers are. Who are the customers we want to retain? And the analysts are looking for, how are you defining your best shoppers? And AskKea confirmed each step. It's
Mhm.
amazing what I saw Stephanie do.
And I didn't spend a lot of time on the offers that AskKea had generated, but these offers were specifically because of the group that I chose.
Hmm.
Specifically, if you in the list of the items that the group buys most often, soda came up again and again and again. And so that is one of the offers that we included. The milk and bread offer was more of a kind of a growth offer. So it's spend 30, buy milk and bread, and then get this off. So it's not just coming up with $2 off Coke.
A variety of offers targeted to specific people's shopping behaviors. Yes, based
Yes.
on a segment of high value, but drilled down to the personal shopper's experience. And you did that in 5 minutes. That's amazing. Thank you so much. That gives us a much better sense of how this could be impactful for marketing teams. Katie, as a role of merchandiser, where are we seeing this in the business? Categories, items, specific stores?
Yeah, so what I'm going to share, Courtney, in the role of merchandising here, what we're going to do is actually take a look at that category level, like you asked. So, scenario we have that I've put to Kia here is that we are seeing, a need to change up some assortment in our snack, specifically snack potato chip category here. There's a lot going on in the aisle. We need to reduce some of our assortment, and I'm interested in what brands are not seeing very much movement, much growth, that we could potentially reduce our assortment down and give some more space to some more high value brands instead. So that's exactly what I've asked Kia, as a starting point. We want to reduce our assortment in snacks, potato chips, what brands are seeing low velocity in our latest quarter here, Q1. And Kia is going to come back. It's going to identify that category for us, our fiscal quarter, and it's going to give me, what it is considering as velocity. So our units per store per day. I did not give it this definition. It is aware of, the idea of velocity, and the result it's presenting back for us, we can see right off the bat, there's this undefined group, maybe something you would want to ask your analyst to take a closer look at. There might be some items that haven't been assigned brand yet, but for our purposes here, the one that jumps out at us is pop chips. We're only seeing in Q1 here less than 900 units moved across the quarter. They're only in 35 stores. This is looking like a really good option to potentially, reduce the assortment in that group of stores there. So from there, I'm interested in, the folks that are buying pop chips here, are they buying other brands? What is the risk in removing pop chip items from these stores? Is there a risk of losing these customers? But are they exclusive? Are they buying other things? So asking here, are they buying other brands? And then how many of the buyers are exclusive to pop chips? So Kia is going to come back. It's going to let me know that for Q1, we had a little under 300 customers buying pop chips. 207 of those were exclusive. They weren't buying any other potato chip brands in Q1. 91 of them, though, they did buy other things, and it's given me a breakout here of what were those other brands that these pop chip customers were purchasing. We can see, Lay's comes to the top, Middlesworth, Martin's, Ers. So I know there is, a little bit of a risk. There's a group of these customers that are exclusive. It's not, large in comparison to our total customer base, but, there is some risk there. So outside of potato chip, are there other categories of snacks, though, that these customers are purchasing? I'm looking for, are there other avenues that we can track for these customers in the snack space. So here's an example. Kia comes back and it's saying for me, don't have any other departments exactly called snacks. Okay, but it's offering for me, do you want to look at ones that have, similar, let me use a broader definition to identify snacks for you. So yes, go ahead, use that broader definition. And here we go, it comes back and it's looking for our snacks, our corn chip tortilla, our pretzels, and yes, here we are seeing more of these pop chip buyers. They are in our other snack categories. Okay, great. So I know, pulling these items, I'm not going to be completely losing them, but I do still want to see what this is going to do in terms of the basket for these customers. So, what are they spending on pop chips? How often are they buying within the quarter? So asking Kia here, what's the basket size impact if we remove these SKUs from the assortment here? What's that going to change for the customer here? So I confirmed for it that yes, I still want to look at Q1 2026. We'll keep to the same time frame. And then it comes back for us. So not only is it telling me that even though, yes, these folks are exclusive to pop chips, they're not buying very frequently. This group of customers, they had, over 600,000 transactions within the quarter. Only 400 of those actually included pop chips. This is becoming clearer and clearer that these items really are not moving the needle. Even with the customers that are purchasing them, they are not a big contributor to their overall transactions. So, for the transactions where the customer bought these items, yes, they spent about $6. They were buying a couple units, but that accounted for less than a cent of their overall average transactions within the quarter. So, from there, I'm convinced at this point, pop chips needs to go. We need to use this space for something else. So I'm asking Kia as a last question, okay, if we go ahead and remove it, what do you recommend that we replace it with instead? So I could ask Kia to give us a broader view, but what it's given us is looking specifically at, replacing an item for those exclusive pop chip customers. What are going to be our best bets? And those ones that we saw a little bit ago, the Lay's, the Middlesworth, Martin's, Ers, these are the ones where we have seen already there is cross shop with our pop chip buyer. These brands in particular already have a high velocity, which is not something that I had even asked about, but AskKea, considered it for us anyway. And it's giving us our overall recommendation, but primarily that we would want to give this facing space to Lay's instead. As a last option, we could restrict this to just the couple stores where pop chips were available, or we could look at a larger chain-wide view instead. But, I think this was maybe 5 or 6 questions. I went from knowing that I had some space to give up within our snack aisle, identified, the best brand to remove and what to replace it with.
I mean, wow, Katie, like I've heard horror stories about the war rooms in retail where they are fighting for what is the best thing for the store. I know everybody has their own agenda, but the data is there for you to make this an easier process.
Absolutely.
And to make it impactful. I mean, that's really what it needs to do. So that's fantastic. Thank you so much. Amanda, you are playing the role as an analyst. How would an analyst best use AskKea?
Yep. Great question, Courtney. So analysts get pulled in so many directions, from the merch team, marketing, promo team, even operationally sometimes. But the key question I think we get asked is what changed and why? And Birdzi's AskKea is really that tool for answering this question. Historically, an analyst would have to do a data dump exported from a dashboard or report for a specific timeline, perform sorting, pivot tables, Excel formulas. And if we want to, say, go back and revise that time period, that means pulling another report, another export. But really, AskKea simplifies that process. It can provide data tables, insights, interpretations in a fraction of the time. So I will just share my screen here. So with the reporting structure that most retailers have, we go searching for a specific question on a category, a brand, or a store, and really spend almost a week locked in on that specific topic, mostly because of the time it takes to get data outside of that scope. But with AskKea, you can keep the questions broad and then dive deeper as needed. So for this example, I'm just going to ask Kia a general question: which categories underperformed in Q1 26 versus last year? So what this is listing here is all our categories of the dates of Q1 versus Q1 2025, pulling out specifically those big year-on-year drops. So these are all over a 97% difference year-on-year. But we're seeing, these are not high contributing categories. And Kia's already reading my mind. It's saying that these are very small bases, and instead we want to run large dollar declines. So I'm going to revise the question to just show high contributing underperformers, like this meat beef steaks ribeyes that's dropped from $1 million in Q1 to 3,000 in this latest quarter, 2026. So it will revise, and typically we'd be doing this in an Excel file, sorting in just one question, and under a minute it repopulates this table. So we're seeing eggs commodity, again, meat, beef, steaks, ribeyes is still in that top declining category, in addition to some other meat categories. We're seeing ground beef, beef steaks, meat value added chicken, all seeing some decent declines year on year. So what I'm asking is, how is this affecting the meat department as a whole? We're seeing a few meat categories in here. So let's jump to, how is this affecting the meat department? And why is this declining? Is it trips? Is it shoppers? Is it basket size? So what Kia provided here is the total meat department year on year for Q1 26 versus 25 results. So we're actually seeing meat as a whole is not seeing some deep declines. Actually, growth in sales, growth in trips, growth in shoppers, slight drop in trips per shopper over the full quarter, and dip in sales per shopper. But now we're going to pull out those specific meat categories. And without doing a deeper analysis, Kia is telling me what's the driver. The primary driver is fewer shoppers. So these categories are all seeing fewer shoppers year on year. So it even gives us a nice interpretation. For the most biggest decline meat categories, decline is fewer shoppers buying from that category. And I want to dig deeper, why is that shopper count dropping? I'm thinking, is it maybe count of items in the category? Has the item retail price gone up that has made shoppers, exit the category? Meat, as we've seen, from an economic standpoint, is maybe something shoppers aren't buying as much now in the latest quarter. But let's see what AskKea says. So meat, beef, steak, ribeyes, what's happening? So again, it just pulls out those top line metrics of sales, items, trips, shoppers. But the biggest call out here is the store selling difference. So last year, Q1 2025, 94 of my stores were selling this category. Now only 9 were. It's an 85 drop in store selling, but also the stores that are selling have increased the average price by a double almost, by about $7. So it's going to tell me now why is the shopper drop happening. This looks like a distribution issue. These stores are no longer selling this category. We saw earlier that this category is a small driver of the full meat department. I think it was about 2%. It listed further up. So maybe this went under the radar for our meat category managers. Maybe they're aware of it. But either way, starting with this broader question, I think can dive deeper. I mean, from here, I could have gone into the eggs commodity change, but just specifying on this specific meat category. We also want to, then it calls out stores that are selling and the difference we're seeing. So the stores that are selling this category are also seeing declines. So let's scroll down a little bit. We want to pull out those specific 9 stores. So overall, this is telling us that this category is having some distribution issues, likely no longer selling, or potentially these items in the ribeye category. So we're seeing that potentially these products in the ribeye category have changed to a different category, and we want to account for that in our analysis. So I could dig deeper into this about specific stores. I did just want to get a better scope of the timing of this issue. I know we specifically asked about Q1 26 versus Q1 25. If I wanted to open that up to the full year, it'd take me back to a dashboard, back to an export. But here I can just ask, when did this, in plain text, when did this drop happen? So now it's breaking it down for me over the past 2 years, each period 1 through 12. So we see that drop, and even from a formatting perspective, bolden those numbers. We see these items were pretty consistent over 2025, and the drop happened in 2026 at the beginning of the year. So if I wanted to break it out by the 9 stores that are still selling, I could dig deeper there. It gives me an analysis of each store and the transactions we're seeing in the category. I'm just going to skip down here. I asked now for a recommendation for these stores. Typically, an analyst would take this information back to the merchandiser and they'd be the decision maker, but this could equip an analyst with some suggestions as well, some action items. One that it recommended was, where did ribeye go? So we know there's potentially a distribution issue. These items are just no longer being sold or moved categories. But it did suggest where these shoppers went. So I'm going to say, how many shoppers is this affecting? And how is this department doing in other stores. So calling out this distribution issue affected about 44,000 shoppers just in the latest quarter. We can see the stores that lost versus stores still selling. So from these 85 stores that lost the ribeye category, it's about 40,000 shoppers. So, I could keep going here, but in summary, really, we're explaining the decline and really we're getting these answers here. And this gives the analyst more time to visualize this information, both on PowerPoint, on different charts needed or graphs needed, but it creates time to deliver this information and strategize with the meat category manager. So I think from an analyst perspective and from all of our roles here, the time saver is a huge benefit of AskKea, but also the interpretations, the digging deeper, and the action that it suggests.
Fantastic. I love that we are actually giving analysts more tools and making their jobs a little easier. So that's great. Well, thank you all very much. You've seen our team has shown you how we've gone from question to answer to action without the delay that usually slows this down. And as Amanda said, that's really the difference. It's not about having more data. It's about getting insight fast enough to actually do something with it. Because when you can move this quickly, you're not just reacting, you're staying ahead of what's happening in your stores. And if that's something that you are thinking about or you want to see how this would work in your environment, please head to birdseye.com for more information and contact us. And thank you, everyone. We will see you next time on the Retail Perch.
Thanks for listening to The Retail Perch. Follow us on LinkedIn at The Retail Perch for new episodes and updates. For more resources, visit birdseye.com. Catch you next time.